Hey everybody, I'm Afefe with Touch by Tarot, and I wanted to get on here today. I'm telling you ahead of time, I'd really love your feedback on this one, you all. You know I love the engagement. This one, I really am depending on your feedback. I want to talk to you about psychic development and magic and how the two work together in or can work together in our spiritual development. Some of you may be very comfortable with the idea of both, the psychic arts and mediumship, which is a complementary gift, spiritual gift, but separate. Mostly my understanding is that for the most part, when we talk about mediumship, we are talking about people who have an ability and gift to be able to connect with the deceased, with those in another realm, and bring back messages. Psychic development is this broader realm of where we become attuned. We talk about the clairs, clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, etc. And it is where we become attuned to the etheric realm or to, paranormal experiences. And because of that, our intuition gets heightened. We find ourselves, feeling more empowered or more awake even. We talk about a spiritual awakening, right? So the two things are complementary, but they don't have, it's not like if you don't have one you can't have the other, etc. Now many of you know me for tarot. I am giving you a heads up. 2024 is going to be an interesting year for us all in many different ways. I encourage us all to develop our gifts, to really buckle down and think about, and setting our intentions for how we want to operate in the world, because we know the world around us is extremely chaotic right now, and that is not going to slow down anytime soon, you all. I know that's not a news flash, right? Okay, so part of this whole journey that we're on is we need to be prepared and think about the ways that on our own journeys, and then collectively how we can operate in our current times, right? What's beneficial? How do we continue to bring light to the world? All right, that is another reason why I wanted to talk to you, and you will hear more from me about magic in the coming year and beyond. And also how tarot can be. I will always, tarot is my tool of choice, and I will teach you ways and share with you ways. I'll be doing more workshops around multiple ways to use tarot and implement tarot in our lives. But let's park that for a moment. Psychic development. Many of you, I know, I've met you, and for those of us who attended Susan Lynn's first Connect to Empower conference, let's just think about the title of that conference, which, I mean, she's just, we all know how we feel about her. I just, wow, not a more stellar human being on the planet, in my opinion. But the choice of that title, Connect to Empower. When you exercise your spiritual gifts, that is what you are doing on all levels. You are connecting with source. You are connecting with your higher self. You're understanding your past lives, perhaps. You are connecting with your ancestors. You are connecting, if you're using mediumship, but you are connecting with source. Whether when we say source for you, that means God, Jesus, Allah, the goddess, etc., or just cosmic light, however you identify. But you are making a connection. And the reason for that connection is because you are trying to become empowered to impact some situation in your life, whether it is, just understanding your path, your purpose, understanding your history, understanding the dynamics in your family, in your childhood, and what happened, understanding, a marriage that has lasted decades, or perhaps one that went off the rails and wound up in divorce, understanding jobs that you had and then decided to walk away from, or many people, then going back to COVID, many people, the rug was yanked from under them. Companies went under, and unexpectedly they were unemployed, right? And had to pivot. Pivot became a huge word for us, right? In the past few years, we've learned how to pivot, and perhaps we did one thing or thought we were going to do one thing in our career for many years, and found ourselves having to make a turn and figure something else out. When we talk about, so that's psychic development, that is that I think a lot of us are becoming more comfortable with the idea that we do all have unique abilities. How we use those abilities is up to us to decide. And that is one of the reasons why we have this, wealth of information out there. So many teachers on YouTube and elsewhere who are outlining what those things are. And it's not about anybody necessarily having to tell you, well, here you go. Here's what you're supposed to do. Yes, perhaps you receive a reading and the guides come through and say, you're definitely an empath or you're definitely clairvoyant. It's up to you at that point to then take that information and decide, okay, if that's the case, here's a class I want to take, or here's a book I want to buy, or here's a prayer I want to do. Here's something I want to sit with in meditation and make a closer connection to it, so I can decide for myself how I'm going to employ that gift. All right. Not everybody wants to do it professionally. Not everybody wants to do it, and do a YouTube channel. Although, if that is something you feel is a calling, don't let fear stop you. Like, definitely, part of what's happening with us, you all, is we are being pushed, circumstances in the world and so many events that are unfolding around us. We are being pushed to live our purpose, to step it up, to accept the challenge, to understand that we each have a role to play in this global community that is being built right before our eyes. All right. So psychic development, whether that is getting into your clairs, getting into even for some people, the chakra system. I've done workshops on the chakras. I am going to do more in 2024 because for those of you who may not be familiar, the chakras are 7 points, and there are actually more, but by and large, people focus on these 7 energy points within the body that regulate and help us in every area of our life: our emotional development, our physical health, our creativity, our a sense of abundance, our willpower, our confidence, our ability to express ourselves, our ideas, our ability to gain wisdom in that crown chakra, to employ wisdom, etc. So when you get comfortable with the chakras, and those chakras are open and balanced, then of course it pings your intuition so that you can more easily access your that psychic realm, and improve your psychic development. You see what I mean? And so all these different things work hand in hand, you all. And part of my purpose for getting on here today, and I said when I started, I want your feedback, because I would love to hear more from many of you. Where are you? Where do you feel yourself leaning? What lights you up? Or perhaps what confuses you a little bit. You're interested in it, but perhaps you lack the confidence, the know-how. You're not quite comfortable with it. For many of us, especially if we came from very strict religious, quote unquote, religious backgrounds, then this whole journey and exploration into other ways of enjoying, spirituality and enjoying metaphysical, the metaphysical realm. We get a little hung up on it. Like we know we're going in, but perhaps we feel like we need to pull a shade from the outside world and make sure nobody sees us, right? I get it. Trust me, I get it. Former, church goer, there on Wednesday night Bible studies and twice on Sunday. I was an usher, I was jumping up, giving my testimony. Love that period of my life. It helped form a basis for who I am, but I also reached a point in life where something was urging me. There was a desire to go out and explore, and boy, did I do just that. And so again, many of you know parts of my story. I will be sharing more with you in 2024 as I branch out and begin to offer more workshops and more readings on things like magic, on things like psychic development, on things like understanding different cultural norms and practices, and how ultimately they all complement one another and fit one another in terms of there being one source, many paths, right? Many of you have probably heard that saying, one source, many paths. Okay. So we talked a little bit about psychic development. I also wanted to get on here today and talk to you all about magic. When in tarot, we have the card that many of you are familiar. We have the magician. So it's not a foreign concept to most of us. What I do think some of us struggle with, and rightfully so, is a comfort level with magic, with understanding. You see, some of you may have noticed I'm carrying, at the Connect and Empower conference, if you were there, we had a costume party and I came as a fairy godmother. And I got this, it's just a little thing I bought off Amazon, but I thought it was so cool. It's got this crystal point at one end, and then the shaft part has these beautiful stones, and then it ends at the end with a beautiful rose quartz. So I was waving my little, woogity woogity woo. So magic. Some of us, we freeze a little bit. Again, going back to my Christian days, you all, there were times if somebody started talking that, I was like, oh, no, no, no. Let me get the holy oil out right now and, park that, pump the brakes on that. We grow and we learn, right? They say never. And Spirit has definitely taught me, never say never. So think about the ways that magic can be beneficial. I'm going to start teaching that. I want to hear from you around that, because the thing with magic, or anything where you set an intention, that is really what magic is. With a lot of psychic development, it is about becoming attuned to the etheric realm, right? So that you become more comfortable with the paranormal, and you can receive information, right? Downloads, as we often call it. With magic, it is where you are a participant in some of the changes that you want to see. Think about, Spirit is telling, think about prayer. Most people are comfortable with prayer, whether they're, you actively do it or not. But people don't freak out when you say, someone is praying, or pray for me. Someone says pray for me, or something like that, because you understand that there's a comfort level with it. It's ingrained. It's something where we naturally figure, okay, a person is in need, something's going on, and they are going to source God, goddess, etc. And there's this exchange that happens. You put your desire, your request out, and then look for things to come. You stay. Vision boards are sort of a physical manifestation of prayer, right? If you think about it that way. But magic, in terms of in a lot of pagan practices, in a lot of Afrocentric practices, in a lot of Central American practices, the Amazon, etc., shamanistic practices, magic is where you become a participant in the prayer. You don't just release the intention and speak the words, or sit in silence and get grounded in meditation in what it is that you need, whether it's a health concern, a financial concern, your love life, all of these things, these sort of general, broad and common topics, universal topics and issues in life that we all encounter, all of us, right? So when we think about magic as a form of where you actually become a participant in the desired outcome, many people employ things from nature. You've heard of potions or herbal tinctures. I want you to begin to think about that. Let's demystify that. And that's going to be, I'm accepting that challenge. Spirit is putting that on my heart. To demystify some of these things, to clear them up, so that we can establish for ourselves what our comfort level is and what we feel works for us. Think about this, you all. For many of us, when we were young, when we were kids, and we got sick, we got a sniffle, we got a cold. Maybe our grandmothers or somebody knew about herbs and fixed up a special tea. And maybe it tasted great. They put the honey in it. Maybe it tasted great, or maybe it was super bitter. But the idea was they fixed something that was meant to address, the cold or whatever we were going through, to make us well. They did something. They utilized the teas, the tinctures. They utilized what they had, the fruits, the lemon, the honey, the ginger. They utilized those things to create a drink for us that was designed to make us well, all right? On a very practical level, that is magic. It is where you have a desired intent to make us well, to make the child well, right? And then you have the wherewithal, well, I know that oregano does this, or basil does that, or honey does this, or ginger does that. Certain things are an expectorant and will help clear up the mucus, right? This is what, in many traditions, for especially paganism and others as well, conjure, hoodoo, etc., where people learned, I go back, my ancestry does extend to slavery. And so there were many root workers, but there were no doctors, there were no hospitals at that time. People had to learn the uses of herbs, the uses of what the land, fruits, etc., what the land plants, what the land offered. And these things are still employed today. But what has happened, I think, is because we have become so modernized as a global society. We trust more in modern techniques than we do in some of those old ways. And then some of those folk ways can then become, is maybe that was actually backwards all along, or maybe we just have certain feelings about it and we can sort of shy away from it, and it doesn't seem as popular or as acceptable to talk about it or to employ those methods. But ultimately, y'all, going back to the example of the tea, your grandmama's tea is in your DNA. You know what I mean? And the fact that many of us were raised by people who did have, especially if we grew up in more rural environments, farmland, etc. There's a connection to the land. There's a natural affinity for the earth and for the things that we can work with. When we think about shamanism, even as a different branch of, but is what is also very magical. There are very many people out now, you hear about these ayahuasca ceremonies, right? When I grew up in the 60s and 70s, where LSD and all of this sort of experimentation with mind altering drugs were very popular. And the idea was people were looking for liberation. They were looking for political liberation, spiritual liberation, economic liberation. There was this real sense of being exploratory. And I think in many ways, what we're going through right now today, you all, with all of the political and social turmoil and economic uncertainty, we are being, pulled. Our souls, our ancestors, our angels, our guides are pulling us into sort of a recognition and a reminder, hey, we are not just at the mercy and whim of these circumstances and events that are going on around us. We also have a responsibility and a gift to be able to be a participant, to be able to influence. And what we have to do is decide whose team do you play on, right? I have a ring that I have, my given name, my Afefe is my spiritual name, and I did legally adopt it. But my given name was Lana. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to hold it up. Hopefully you can make it out. But it says Lana means light. And one day a co-worker of mine way back in the day gave me a little card, and it had said Lana means light, and it gave this whole description. I was like, where did she get this made up somewhere? And you can Google it. One day I Googled the name, and sure enough, it said Lana means light. I think in Gaelic or Gaelic, if I'm saying that wrong. But you have to, I pulled out in preparation for this, one of my favorite oracle decks to use. Many of you have heard me refer to myself as a priestess. I am a priestess. I am a high priestess. We'll talk more about that later. But, for some people, they go, what does that mean? And so one of my favorite oracle decks is called this Priestess of Light. Lana means light. Anything that you hear me say or do is always, I promise you, with everything in me, is going to be in the service of light. It's going to be in the service of healing and growth and connectivity and calmness and joy. Sometimes the route that we have to take to those things involves shadow work. It involves facing our fears. It involves overcoming our biases, our cultural biases, our inherited biases, etc. There is a challenging aspect to it, but to get to the other side, I go back to, and I'm not making a correlation to Susan Lynn at all. This is Afefe's ideas, and I'm talking to you about. But so this is not I'm not no buy-in or saying that from her perspective. But I do go back to again the title that she used for her conference, which I thought was brilliant. Connect to empower. We are connecting to these resources that we have, going back to the magician in tarot. The magician utilizes air, earth, fire, water, spirit, every resource available to us to affect a desired outcome, to set an intention, to create a desired outcome. The magician can be a little ruled by Mercury, so can be a little mercurial, can stick with it and go, if it ain't working right away, forget it. I'll do it another time, right? So there's the learning curve that the magician has to be able to stick with it, to be able to change up what the tools that are being used. If, say, on a practical level, say you have a business plan or a relationship that has its challenges. So you tried this, you tried that. A health issue that has its challenges. You tried this medicine or that doctor. You don't give up on the issue. Perhaps you try an alternate therapy or another doctor. You get a second opinion. Perhaps in the relationship, you get counseling. Perhaps in the business, you tweak the business plan. You see what I'm saying? It's about intention, setting intention. But when we do it in a magical way, it is very often because what is impacting us is also going to impact others. Having said that, I also want to close out with a cautionary note. I also recognize that one thing that help make some people a little reticent about magic or the magical arts is because a lot of what we've heard about them has to do with asserting will, domination, or using, somehow unduly influencing someone for an outcome that we want. Okay, there's things called boss fix, where you want your raise, you want your money, so you employ these, these methods to get to influence that boss to give you more money or give you that raise, that promotion. We've all heard about love spells, where you just want someone so bad that no matter the consequences, you decide you're gonna, follow this regimen or do whatever's necessary to attract that person to you. Okay, all these sorts of things. But here's the thing, I'll leave you with this. Think about Einstein's theory of relativity, right? It's like for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And secondly, karma is real. All right. So again, when I talk about this priestess of light, Lana means light, encouraging you all to make decisions that always are for the greater good. And that, sure, we all have personal needs and wants, and we are entitled to those. But also recognizing that if what we want, if what we are going after, in any way adversely impacts someone else, in order for us to get ours, somebody else has to lose theirs, that sort of thing, then even though we may temporarily get what we asked for, they say, be careful what you ask for, you just might get it, right? So often, there are things that we want so badly that we just don't think about the long-term impact. I will share a story with you along that as I close out. A friend of mine, a dear friend of mine from years ago, she's we've parted ways. I'm not even sure that she's with us anymore. I lost touch with her, and Spirit has given me some indication that she may not be. But having said that, she was in love with a man for years and years and years who was married. They had an affair, and over time he did divorce the woman, but at that point he became sort of a playboy, and he was playing the field. And she just, 15, 20 years had gone by this time, and she was like, I am going to be with this man. He is my soulmate, and I don't care what, we are meant to be together. And so she went down that path, and she went and sought some help, quote unquote help. And sure enough, over a period of time, they wound up together, and they wound up getting married. Within months of them getting married, he contracted a very severe illness. And she essentially, for the next 2 years until he passed away, became his caregiver. Literally became his nurse, his live-in nurse. She lost her home. She lost all of her savings in an effort to take care of him, because what she thought he had and how he had presented himself over the years, he was Mr. Man, sharp dresser, moving and shaking, and all of that crumbled on her watch over the last 2 years of his life. She lost everything, okay? So I just say that as a cautionary tale because sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. And magic is a beautiful thing. It is, for any of you who have studied the works of Louise Hay, who wrote the book Heal Thyself, among others, to employ the connection with source, to invoke a desired outcome of healing, to utilize the resources that we have, all of the resources that we have, the ancient wisdom that we carry, to uplift one another, to help one another, and to cure disease, to create abundance, to create a more peaceful and loving world and society, to allow people to have the freedom to be themselves, however they want to appear in the world, etc. Magic is a wonderful tool to help us to effectuate that, to be a participant in that spiritual energy. But we also have to think about the long-term consequences and the fact that we are responsible for the energy that we bring to the world. All right? Enough said. Let me know your thoughts on that. I do intend to do more of this work specifically. We're going to get deep with it in 2024, and I love your feedback as I prepare to do so. Take good care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.